People from La Casa de la Cultura, this is Milagros Ugueto de Sanchez.
And Keudis Sanchez.
And this is Cultura Disruptiva as well. We are here to invite you to watch the full episode of what happened at the Afro Legacy Fest educational panel.
In the Harvey Gantt Center. Remember, share, subscribe, comment,
and like.
And follow us.
Follow us on Instagram, please. Thank you.
Thank you for coming. It's very important to us to connect and create buildings between brothers, Afro-descendant community, right? And indigenous.
Yes. For us, it means a lot to be able to have a space in which we may come together. As my husband said, Keudis Sanchez, and our slogan this year is unity in community. Because we came to Charlotte in 2017 as cultural ambassadors, language teachers, art teachers, to CMS, not knowing anything about the city, the school system. We did our research, but it's not the same. Getting in touch, getting involved, feeling part, feeling welcome. And this community has welcomed us beautifully. So I want to start with giving you thanks for coming, joining us today in this panel. We are the CEO and COO of La Casa de la Cultura. So after being teachers for 4 years in the United States, we were not tired enough. So we decided to come up with this nonprofit organization in which we talk about culture, and then we can bring real experiences to our students in the classroom. So if I'm going to talk about 21 Spanish-speaking countries and their traditions and culture, I was going to do it the way it has to be done. So my name is Milagros Ugueto de Sanchez. Please call me Mila. And I am going to introduce you to this honorable, fantastic, beautiful, amazing panel.
Marvelous.
Marvelous. Sorry, I missed that one.
Powerful.
And I'm going to start with Vanesa Castañeda, who was born and raised in Charlotte, North Carolina. She obtained her PhD in Latin American Studies from Tulane University. She is the Assistant Professor of Afro-Latino American Studies at Davidson College, and her research focuses on questions of culture, gender, race, and foodways in Latin America and Latinx United States, but she specializes in Brazil. And she teaches classes on race and racial formation in Latin America, food, and identity in Latin America, and the politics of joy. This is our first panelist, Vanesa Castañeda.
Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me, Milagros.
Dígame.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you for being with us. We understand the importance of bringing people who have done a little bit of some studies, not to say a lifetime of researching and findings and sharing and connecting with different communities. Thank you for accepting the invitation.
Yes, thank you for saying yes.
Yes. And then our second panelist is my little sister, Rany Jeanlys. And I met Rany as a hip-hop dancer. And I said, okay. And then I found out how clever, marvelous, brilliant she is, not only as a human being, but as a professional. She's a girl in numbers. Not all of us are qualified to handle numbers, but she is. And then she also brings culture through 2 different spaces. She could be teaching hip-hop class at the dance district on Monday at 8 o'clock. And then, what time? Tuesdays, 8 o'clock, but she used to be with me on Tuesdays. She just switched the date. And then she goes and rehearses with us Venezuelan music or Puerto Rican music. And then she shares about her Haitian roots.
And working in her Spanish.
And working on learning her Spanish. Tomorrow, most of you are going to be practicing your Spanish during the halftime of the Super Bowl, right?
So are you ready?
Yes, I'm sure they are. And over there, you see a proud papa recording the baby.
The baba.
The father. Thank you for being here with us, darling. And
I want to talk about José. I want to introduce with this word. Porque cuando Puerto Rico comprenda el valor de su folclore, luchará con mucha fuerza por defender su honor. Es nuestro compromiso. Estas palabras son de Rafael Cepeda, right? Y José representa la Fundación Folclórica Cultural. Oh, yeah. Sorry.
Does he really want me to translate?
Yeah, but we want to change Puerto Rico today, and we want to change the whole community here present, all right?
Yes, continue, yo traduzco adelante.
José Cepeda, yes. José Manuel Cepeda Martínez. He is a son of the drum mayor Jesus Cepeda Brenes and Sonia Martínez. Es nieto del patriarca,
grandson,
de la bomba y plena de Puerto Rico. Él nació en una familia que posee una tradición. He
was born
in a family that they carry a tradition for more than 80 years, teaching about the Afro-descendant culture in Puerto Rico. It's a bomba plena, and they have a lot of history to talk, and he is part of the Society of History of the Villa Palmeras in Puerto Rico. He represents part of the long tradition. His sister Julia está acá, por allá tenemos a Rafael y a Víctor, a Rafa Cepeda, Víctor Quiñones. They come from Puerto Rico to teaching us today, this weekend, about the bomba de Puerto Rico. So José, gracias por decir presente. Thank you for saying and stay here and say present. Thank you for being part of this activity today.
Gracias a ustedes por la invitación, a nuestra familia y darnos la oportunidad de traer nuestro conocimiento y nuestras tradiciones también.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us and our family and bringing our traditions to Charlotte. That's what he said.
Another person that we proud to introduce is nuestro Nibu, Bodoma Garifuna. He's when we meet him, when we read, have an investigation or research about the Garifuna community, was a shock for us because we don't know about the traditions that connect us, because part of the Garifuna community, they have connection with the Arawakan and Caribe indigenous and the Afro-descendants. Well, he want to talk more about this in a few minutes. But Bodoma is the third year that he come here to celebrate with us the Afro Legacy Fest, connecting building between communities. Thank you, Bodoma, for being here. He has a long life teaching, passing the torch to the new generation. When you see his group all the time, they have two elders in the group, and the other ones is young people. I love this part of this group of cultural band. Thank you, Bonoma, for being here today.
Sereme, once again, Sereme, thank you. And thank you for support.
And then I may translate that part as well. My brother just said Sereme, what does it mean? It means blessings, thank you, in the Garifuna language. So we're going to be learning a little bit about that language that has kept alive. They have kept it alive, and they have preserved it and passed it to this younger generation. So we're going to be talking more about this in a moment. I want to start with the first question, and I will start with you, Bodoma. So I'm going to read in both languages, and then question number one is about the diaspora, the African diaspora. ¿De qué maneras la diáspora africana se manifiesta de forma única en tu comunidad garífuna? ¿De qué manera la diáspora africana se mantiene de forma única en las comunidades garífuna. Permíteme decirlo en inglés. In what ways does the African diaspora take unique forms within the Garifuna nation?
Gracias. Una de las maneras de las que se manifiesta esta energía africana entre nosotros es manteniendo y preservando lo que nos pasaron nuestros ancestros, lo que tuvimos de nuestros ancestros.
One of the unique ways in which we preserve this African legacy is through what our ancestors passed to us.
Casi siempre la historia africana se cuenta comenzando desde la esclavitud. Garifuna es una excepción de ella.
Almost always the history of the African descendant starts with slavery. It's not the case of the Garifuna nation.
Sereme.
Sereme, brother. Could you say, ¿puedes decir un poquito de eso en Garifuna? Lo que dijiste en Garifuna para que ellos escuchen.
Buiti Ramabeyo Nanigo. Buenas tardes. Good afternoon. Buiti Ramabeyo. Buenas tardes. Can you say Buiti Ramabeyo? Please. Sereme. Muchas gracias. Lida gele wayano habai wawa garinago. Hamage wayunago. Aginene. Hamage wayunago arawaga. Los arawacos. Biago bai hagia wayunago baña. Nuestros ancestros fueron los aborígenes africanos y los aborígenes indígenas arahuacos de todo el Caribe.
So their ancestors were the indigenous Arawak and the African descendants from the entire, the Arawaks for the entire Caribbean area, and then the African descendants brought to this part of the world, and they were never enslaved.
Nunca llegaron, nunca pudieron esclavizarnos. Se dice, se sabe de que el esclavizador lo primero que hacía con sus esclavizados es prohibirles hablar la lengua y practicar su cultura, practicar sus tradiciones.
Slave traders, the first thing they did was to forbid the language and their traditions.
Pero no pudo con
nuestros
ancestros.
That didn't happen with their ancestors, the Garifuna ancestors.
Porque hasta hoy día preservamos nuestra lengua, tradición y costumbres como nuestros ancestros.
Because up today, you can't give it up. They keep their language, their traditions, their food, their music from their ancestors. Thank you, Boloma. Gracias, muchas gracias. Y quiero hacer esa misma pregunta a nuestro querido José. Y la pregunta la voy a repetir. Dice, ¿de qué manera la diáspora africana se manifiesta de forma única en las comunidades de Puerto Rico?
Buenas tardes. Sí, por 8 generaciones mi familia se ha mantenido conservando las tradiciones negras de la bomba en Puerto Rico y se ha ido preservando entre nosotros y continuamos llevándola hacia adelante.
Muy bien. For 8 generations, their family, the Cepeda's family, has kept this tradition and has passed it to the younger generations.
Para nosotros es bien importante porque por el lado de mi abuelo Rafael, pues no hubo esclavitud.
So it is very important for them because on his grandfather's side, Rafael Cepeda, there was no slavery.
Pero por el lado de mi abuela,
but on their
sí
grandmother's side, there was slavery.
Son culturas que se fueron encontrando en un momento dado porque Puerto Rico en el 1615 se crea una cédula de gracia donde se le dice a todos los de las islas que si se liberaban y llegaban a Puerto Rico, el cimarronaje, iban a ser libres y les iban a dar unas tierras.
So it was a combination of cultures And there was in 1615 a grace period in which they tell them that if they were able to escape and go to Puerto Rico, they were going to be free.
Eso es lo que lleva a que la bomba se enriquezca con prácticamente lo que estaba pasando alrededor, con Haití, con San Tomás, Santa Cruz, que eran islas danesas, Guadalupe, Martinica, Trinidad, Tobago, Curazao, y podemos encontrar dentro de la bomba, a través de nuestros ritmos, distintos toques y bailes y esencias que nos viene también de nuestros hermanos de las islas.
That is why, yeah, give it up if you want to clap for it together. That's what you see in the Puerto Rican culture because of that grace period. So you see the influence of the rhythms from Haiti, Curacao, the ABC, Aruba, Curacao, Bonaire, and
the
all
other
the
islands of the Caribbean.
Antillas, right? All the islands.
Entonces, nosotros somos de San Mateo de Cangrejo, un poblado formado el 20 de noviembre de 1793. Se forma el poblado de San Mateo de Cangrejo por negros libertos. Nuestra comunidad, nuestro pueblo, nunca tampoco fue esclavizado. En San Mateo no hubo esclavización.
San Mateo de Cangrejo City was
Es una isla.
Island.
Es una isla, ahora está conectada con San Juan, pero es una isla aparte. Está la isleta de San Juan, la isla de San Mateo de Cangrejo y después la isla de Puerto Rico. Es parte del archipiélago.
So it's part of the Puerto Rican islands, and then they were established in 1790. ¿En 90 y cuánto?
En 1773, el 20 de noviembre.
1773, November 20th, they were established as an island, and then that was confirmed by people doing marronage, like cimarronaje.
Sí, habían los que estaban de la isla y los cimarrones. La familia Cortijo, el capitán de las milicias, porque también tenían una milicia, defienden a Puerto Rico de la invasión inglesa, y eso es lo que hace que se le entregue esas tierras a la comunidad negra en Puerto Rico.
So the captain of the military forces supported these native people, the marronage people, doing marronage, and then they gave that was English.
No,
they defended them. They give them the possibility to be an independent population, and then they established San Mateo de Cangrejo.
Estas cosas son las que llevan a que sí se pudiera mantener la bomba, porque mi abuelo nos decía, la bomba es vida, la bomba es madre, la bomba es todo.
So that's what made it possible to preserve la bomba, because his grandfather used to say, la bomba is life, la bomba is rhythm, la bomba is everything.
Nos enseñaban que con la bomba se nacía, pero con la bomba se moría, y no se moría, se pasaba a otro plano.
So they were taught that you were born with la bomba and you transcended with la bomba, because it's not like you die.
En la bomba nosotros conservamos lo que eran los baquinés, lo que eran los belén, que son las despedidas de nuestros difuntos. Ayer escuchaba al maestro aquí hablando de la parte que ellos hacían en su país, y es parte de lo que nosotros hacemos el belén, y mientras se está despidiendo el funeral, nosotros estamos bailando y haciendo unos ritos que van conjunto a eso, y puede durar hasta el otro día completamente los ritos que conservamos, porque tuvimos un esclavizador que en los 1800 estaba prohibiendo la bomba, estaba prohibiendo que se tocara, se estaba prohibiendo los funerales. ¿Sabes? Fueron unos momentos de ataques bien fuertes contra la comunidad negra, constantemente.
¿En 1800?
En el 1840.
In the 1800s, they were forbidden to share their traditions, which he was talking about how they have some certain rituals called belén and what is that?
El baquiné.
The baquiné, and those are rituals they do when there are funerals or different situations in their everyday life. But this slave trader was forbidden them to do it. And he found similarities with the Garifuna community. They also have those rituals. I wonder why, right? We are so similar.
Yeah.
And then they sing certain songs, they dance. As he explained last night, the coffin could be right there in front of you, but you're gonna be dancing here
and playing the drums,
and mourning in a different way.
Y la bomba para nosotros ha sido resistencia porque hemos resistido los imperios. El primero el imperio español y luego el imperio norteamericano, y ha sido la resistencia que hemos tenido que nuestra cultura no muera. Mi abuelo y a su vez sus abuelos, 8 generaciones conservándola para que nuestras tradiciones no mueran, sigan hacia adelante y siga pasando el bastión, como ahora está mi hermana, mi primo, mi sobrino. Bueno, ya llevamos 8 generaciones todavía. Para que eso siga y nuestras tradiciones no se pierdan. Y la bomba es resistencia. Seguimos resistiendo.
La bomba is a way of resistance, and they keep resisting, and that's why they have the whole family engaged in passing this teaching. So here we are with Julia Cepeda, Rafa Cepeda. Raise your hands, please, people. Raise your hands. Victor Quiñones, who is not from the Cepeda's family because of the last name, because he is part of the family. And preserving these traditions and culture and resistance through dancing, drumming, singing, living, being.
Y algo que les quiero contar antes que terminemos, para continuar. Muchas veces en Puerto Rico no se habla de la comunidad negra. En Puerto Rico no se toca ese punto. Y nosotros nos mantenemos ahí al pie del cañón, luchando para que eso sea, porque nosotros somos las voces de nuestros ancestros. Y algo que les quiero compartir es que yo vi a mi abuela marcada por el fuete del Mayoral. Esas son cosas que la gente no las habla, pero nosotros lo vivimos. Y seguimos dando el frente porque seguimos resistiendo y seguiremos resistiendo, y aquí estamos.
So we're going to keep resisting. Here we are and here we continue. Thank you. Muchas gracias, muchas gracias. Me perdí una partecita que estabas diciendo, pero I just don't want to skip it. He said that he saw his grandmother being injured by the owner of the lands.
The whips.
Being marked, being whipped, being tortured. Thank you. Gracias. I will continue with the same question, and this time it goes to Rany. Rany, mi amor, my friend, my sister. So in what ways does the African diaspora take unique forms within the Haitian community?
So when it comes to the Haitian community, I would say one of the biggest ways would be with our music. You guys heard a form of it earlier this morning with Gempap Sote by Bookman Esperance, which my heart will jump. Bookman Esperance is a group that's well known for doing the genre that's called racine. Racine meaning roots, literally like the roots of like a tree. And it's that music is our connection to our West African culture. It's really kind of the thing that brings us back to who we are before we start spreading out and mixing into different genres. And it falls under with Gaga as well. There's a lot of dances that we do in connection with Racine music, like what we did this morning with Petwo. And then there's also Yanvalu, which is more chess involved and is a dance that is based in reflecting the water and reflecting the spirits of water. And a lot of our times with Racine and Rara, it connects a lot to the spirits in voodoo. We call them loi. So there's multiple, and they each have their own purpose and their own way that we connect to. So like, for example, there's Ezuli, there's Ezuli Dantor, Ezuli Frida. Ezuli Dantor is like the one that usually we associate with women and with strength. Ezuli Frida is like with beauty we had talked about like the legbas, like Papa Legba, the one that guards the barrier between our realm and the spirit realm. And then there's Tibon Legba, there's Voodoo Legba. I really am a strong believer that voodoo is what keeps us connected to our culture. And I constantly try to talk about the fact of like trying to destigmatize it, because I think when you try to erase it or try to make something seem evil, you're basically telling us that our roots is evil, you know? And it's very important to try to relearn and reshape that narrative when it comes to our religion and to our music. And I would say also, in addition to that, I would say our food as well is like a great representation of like our connection to our culture. Main one being soup jumu. I don't know if any of y'all had it, but it's great.
I have in your
So
house.
we need to visit your home.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Could you tell them a little bit about that part of your history?
Yeah. So there's soup jumu. It's a soup that is made with squash and beef, carrots, potatoes, all that stuff. I know I'm making y'all hungry. And we celebrate it every New Year because January 1st, 1804 was our Independence Day. And soup jumu originally was a soup that was only for the slave master to eat. We were never allowed to eat it, but we were always the ones forced to make it. And when we had our revolution, when we had Guaycaman, when we had Toussaint, when we had Dessalines, when we had Mackendal, help us lead ourselves to freedom to basically be recognized as our own people in our own country. The first thing that they said was, no, I'm gonna drink this soup because I'm not gonna be forced to make it and not enjoy the fruits that I bear.
Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Yeah, it is a soup of resistance.
It's a soup of resistance. Oh,
It's called freedom
Thank
soup,
you.
literally.
Yeah, actually.
I want to add in something small about, I like that when you check all the background, the Afro-descendant community in everywhere. It's supposed they try to erase our voices, erase our culture and history, but we resisting and we forcing to create new stuff and new ways to celebrate, to enjoy. In example, in Venezuela, a lot of people use the Catholic saints to celebrate the indigenous Pachamama, La Tierra, the air, the water, and the rivers, and the sky, and the harvest. And the Afro-descendants celebrate the Orishas and other deities for the African descendants. And I love to hear when you hear the jazz, you hear the hip hop, you hear all the music that was created here in the United States, mixing with gathering a lot of readings is connected with the Afro-descendant community. My next question is for the Doctora Castañeda. The question is, from an academic perspective, what is important to understand about the Afro-Latinidad and Afro-diaspora as a diverse and complex experience rather than a single identity?
Thank you. So thinking about what the question was in terms of thinking of the diversity of Afro-Latin America, this is something that actually a lot of folks have been talking about since the mid-20th century, who were just not seen as scholars and knowledge producers. So for example, we have Leila Gonzalez. I'm not sure if you've ever heard of her, but she's an Afro-Indigenous feminist thinker in Brazil. And she came up with this term called Americanidade, which talks about the importance of recognizing both the similarities and the shared experience, identity, lived reality of Afro-descendants and Afro-Indigenous people in the entire hemisphere, and the differences, and how those differences do not have to create divisions or create hierarchies or create moments of competition, but actually they can create further unity because it allows for complexity to be acknowledged and for us to further expand the way that we start to think about politics and how politics has to be contextual. We have to think about what does political mobilization looks like within this particular space given the particular social and political environment of that time. And how is this useful for somebody that's Garifuna, and how is this useful for Puerto Rico? And what can we learn from Haiti? And so being able to have those really complex, but really nuanced, and sometimes even uncomfortable to a certain degree because sometimes you're kind of forced to reckon with maybe your own assumptions. And this is something that we all have to go through. One thing that you said that I thought was really powerful is you have to go through that process of relearning, but you also have to go through that process of unlearning. And so I think that is one of the things of the field of Afro-Latin American studies, is that because it encompasses such a diverse group of people and nations and languages and cultures, that is a constant process of unlearning and relearning. And there is this unification through this diversity.
Thank you.
Thank you. So there is a word that resonates with me all the time. Every time we have these conversations, unity, unification, and coming together, listening to each other. And I would like to ask you quickly, Dr. Castañeda, when you bring these subjects to a university and then you create these spaces for students to get to know more about the history and languages, linguistics, semantics, what do you encounter first day of class? What is the expectation from them? Because I know yours as a teacher, you have a clear set of expectations. What about from them?
No, that's a great question. So, for example, in my Intro to Afro-Latin American Studies class, oftentimes a lot of the students have no idea that Brazil even has black people or that Mexico has black people. And oftentimes I feel like, at least in the United States, that kind of education isn't commonplace. Many people just don't know about the African diaspora in Latin America. Perhaps it's different now because people have access to social media and so you're able to see the dances and see the music. But there are many students in the class who just are ignorant, but because they just haven't been exposed to the knowledge. But then I also have students, that are Afro-Latinos. And so they're excited that for the very first time, their history and their lived experience is taken seriously. And it's not just an object of study. It's not kind of we need to study voodoo because it's an exotic, satanic kind of religion, which is the way the anthropologists were studying voodoo in the early 20th century. Afro-Latin American studies is very similar to Black studies in that the field was developed alongside of activists. So it wasn't like anthropology where you just have these older white men that were just curious about exotic countries far away. These fields of study were created recently in terms of institutionally within universities, but because there was a demand from Black students, at Cornell, at San Francisco State here in the U.S., or from activists in all of his Afro-Latin American countries. So it's always a mix of that. It's a mix where students just come in knowing nothing, and I'm going to extend that grace and allow this space to be a space of our unlearning and relearning. And I'm also going to have this space be a really critical space where we're going to take seriously the histories and the ways that Afro-Latinos are also knowledge producers. And they are the ones that demanded that people do not be studied as objects, but people be studied as subjects, where they are speaking alongside with scholars to create this field.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I'm going to open the mic I really have time for 2 questions. Right? Kayla, I love you. So
one hand
there is one question
there.
over there. Do you have a teacher voice or you need a mic?
I have a teacher voice. Okay, sorry. Okay, so I know you said that you do like to give grace. At what point is that just basic ignorance that just is perpetuated amongst Latin America, or possibly where it's like they choose not to want to learn? Because that is something that does happen, because like whether or not it's like already what they do with their indigenous community.
No, that's a good question. And I mean, the thing is, you can give grace and still like have accountability, like still have them have some kind of responsibility. If they arrive to class on the first day and they just do not know much about the African diaspora and Latin American studies, I'm going to extend that grace and I'm going to allow this to be a space of growth. But it's their choice, and they have to own that responsibility and accountability for them to be invested in the subject material. And so if they're not, interested, if they're not taking any of the readings or the discussion seriously, then I don't need to extend grace, because then that's co-signing their ignorance. So there's always for me, there's always I will approach you with grace, but now the responsibility is placed onto you, and I do have that expectation. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I meant that in more of a societal sense, because if you look at a lot of countries, they kind of look at even just their indigenous population as kind of a joke, even though they may be something of mestizo descent. If they see them protesting, they're like, oh the indigenous are just making problems again. Yeah.
I mean, I think it similarly applies to society. I think, if we're going to be committed to education, we have to approach the space with the understanding that you have to have patience. You have to at least be willing to extend grace to anybody that shows up. But, within society, there is that responsibility where you also cannot allow this whitewashing to continue. And so I think it similarly applies. I think it would just depend on whether you're talking about spaces of protest, or if you're talking about legal measures that are being discussed, then how are we going to hold those people accountable in those different spaces within society? But I think it's similar. I am somebody, and the person that I always think about is Fred Hampton, who I'm sure you all know. He was the chapter lead person of the Black Panthers in Chicago. And one of the amazing things that he was able to do was create this multiracial working class coalition called the Rainbow Coalition. And it's because he understood that if you really do want to commit yourself to education and critical awareness, you must begin with some level of grace. But then that accountability has to just come from the community that you have agreed to try and educate in some way. And he was very effective, which is why he was killed by the FBI. So, just when I say I'm going to extend grace because I am committed to education and I understand the uncomfortableness and the patience that this involves, that doesn't mean that I'm going to forever co-sign your ignorance. It means now it's your turn to show up. How are you going to be responsible for the consciousness that I am giving you? Does that make sense?
Thank you. That's a conversation you may continue with Dr. Castañeda later, right? And we will create a space to have more of this monthly, weekly, and I know the Gantt, daily, of course. I'll take it, because this is important. And again, thank you very much for participating in this panel. I will invite you to give them another round of applause. Vanesa, Rany, Jose, Bodoma, Keudis, Mila, and my husband is worried. He wants to know if somebody else has a question, and I'm sure we have 1 minute and they can take it. Is there any other question anybody would like to ask? If not, please go ahead.
You mentioned the Gifon culture. I'd like to know what country that is in.
Could you repeat, please?
The Garifuna?
What country do we find that culture?
In which countries do you find that?
Yes.
Answer in English, please.
Yes. I was about to talk about it a little bit. Garifuna, the Africans' ancestors mixed with the Arawak Indian in St. Vincent the Grenadines, now Caribbean islands, Garibana. So they was exiled to Central America by the British. The historian said about in the 1797 was exiled to Central America, Honduras, Nicaragua, Guatemala, and Belize, because they refused to be a slave. When the European first time come to the Caribbean island, the Garifuna was already there. The Caribs, they were the Black Caribs. Yeah, they was already there. So now we live in Honduras, Guatemala, Nicaragua, and Belize.
In Nueva York.
And New York. The biggest population of Garifuna is found in New York. Thank you very much. Now sí, ahora sí tenemos que wrap it up.
Well, people, thank you for being here today. If you want to check again this conversation, we record everything, and you can check the Cultura Disruptiva. It's on a podcast, and YouTube you can find in the
La Casa de la
Cultura. We want to post it there if you want interesting. We have another one for the last year, and we have a lot of material there.
Yeah, I have to say, after this, you don't want to go home yet, please, because what's happening is amazing. You will see Puerto Rican traditions. You're gonna see the Garifuna traditions, and then a combination or a coming together of all of us. So stay tuned, and after this, you're gonna be able to decide if you want to join us tomorrow in our workshops to learn to dance bomba, to learn to drum bomba from Puerto Rico.
Also tomorrow we'll stay in the historic Rosedale Plantation, 11 to 2. We have another gathering and sharing. We have surprises.
Yes.
Let's go there.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
This was Cultura Disruptiva.
I hope you have enjoyed. Please watch it. If you haven't watched the previous episodes, go back and then check them all. They are amazing. Remember, La Cultura begins in the house, en la casa.
Remember, subscribe, comment, share, follow us.
And like. See you. And please stay tuned. Remember, La Cultura begins in la casa.